Hi, I'm Lynette LaBelle, a freelance editor and romantic suspense author. And this year in Pitch Wars, I'm teaming up with Destiny Cole, and we want all the YA. Well, not all the YA, but a good chunk of it. So check out our wish list to see what we'd like. Today, I want to focus on questions that have come up that really require more than a 140 character answer. So the first question is, what will catch your eye in the opening chapter? Obviously, you've heard this 1,000 times before, but it's really true that the voice is the first thing that's going to grab me. But that's not the only thing I'll be looking at. I want to see if you have a backstory dump, or if your world building is too chunky at the beginning. Yes, we need to understand your world, but it does not have to be immediately. I also want to see if the GMCs, the goal, motivations, and conflicts, are present early on in the story. Because if they're not, then I don't know what this character is going after, why, and what's keeping him from attaining that goal. I also want to know what's at stake. If he doesn't reach that goal by the end of the book, what's going to happen? So make sure all of that is clear early on in the story, preferably within the first chapter, and even better if you could do it in the first few pages. What else? So this kind of falls into that category as well. What is your biggest pet peeve in opening chapters? So heavy description, or staying in the character's head for too long, zero action, or too much action without a breath, too much dialogue or not enough dialogue. You really need to try to find that balance. I also don't like it when you start in a dream or in a flashback, because that's not really the real story, and it can give the wrong impression to the reader. The same thing goes for, I don't want to see someone waking up and starting their day, because, sorry, that's kind of boring. And I don't want to see them grooming and looking in the mirror so that you can describe what they look like. We don't need to know what they look like from the very first page. We can learn that as the story grows. To me, it's not important what the character looks like. I want to know who this character is. I want to know what she's feeling and why. So let's get the story going. Yeah, so that's basically all my points for that one. And I'm also going to talk about queries. So someone wanted to know, in your opinion, what element makes a strong query? Okay, so a strong query, most queries actually should be a page, no more. Agents really get a little bit ticked when they're longer than that. So the industry standard really is one page, so let's stick to that. But that one page has to include the opening. If you have any kind of an intro, like if you met an agent at a conference and you want to mention that, or if someone recommended them, or if this is a referral. So that has to be included, as well as the greeting, if you have a hook paragraph, your blurb paragraphs, which should be between 1 and 3 paragraphs, and a very short bio, the closing, as well as your signature and some of your information like your phone number, possibly your blog or website address. So all of that has to fit on one page. Now, one thing that I see that people kind of get tripped up on is they think that the bio is more important than the blurb. And sometimes those bios end up being like longer than the blurb. So you really need to try to keep your bio as short as possible. I would say between 1 and 3 sentences is really enough, unless you've sold a lot of books and made a lot of money and you really want to let the agent know about that. But really, it has to be relevant to this story. And what's going to sell this story is the story. So make sure you focus on the blurb rather than the bio. I also like to see some voice in your query. So if your story is dark and your query is light and funny, it doesn't match your story. So make sure that they match. I want to know who the protagonist is, what she wants, what's keeping her from attaining that goal, and what's at stake. I'm just going through my notes here, but another mistake that I see as a freelance editor when I'm critiquing or editing query letters is that sometimes people confuse a query letter blurb with a synopsis. So they will try to have the beginning, middle, and end of their story in the query letter. A query letter isn't a synopsis. You do not want to put the ending in your query letter. In fact, you don't want to put much of your book. It's a tease, something similar to what you would see on the back cover of a book when you go into a bookstore, when you're browsing Amazon or wherever. It's just enough to tell you what's going to happen or what could possibly happen, but it makes the reader want to pick it up to see really how this story will be told. Another thing that you need to do in your query is you need to show how your story is unique. Obviously, there are tons of romance stories out there, for example, but what makes your special romance? What makes your romance special? How is it unique? You need to have some kind of a unique twist to your story, and I'm not just talking about romance, for anything, whether it's fantasy or contemporary or whatever. We need to see how your story stands out, because if the agent doesn't think that your story is any different than the rest in her pile, she'll just pass. And another thing that people do is they'll go into too many details, and it just makes the query letter really heavy. Yes, your blurb should be 1 to 3 paragraphs, but if those paragraphs are really dense and full, it can be a little bit much. That said, short isn't always better either, so if you just have one little paragraph or 3 tiny paragraphs and you're not revealing enough about the story, then we might not care enough to read it. So that's where I'm going to stop today, and we will catch you later. Bye.